Today, we take a look at what's changed in the latest Honda City sedan, the Yamaha FZ-X, and we check out the new Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini Dutt. The 2023 updated Honda City has received mixed responses. We are here to dig deeper to find out whether this is capable of tackling new age competition.
The fifth generation Honda City was the first car that we reviewed during the pandemic. Back then, in June 2020, Honda made sure that each and every one of the test cars were disinfected inside and out before handing it over to the journalists. Back then, the aroma of a new car was replaced with the unnerving smell of sanitizers. It's been 3 years since. The pandemic has been declared an endemic. You and I may not be very serious about these kind of safety protocols anymore, but Honda, they have actually ended up upping their safety standards for the new city. How typically Japanese. As a part of an early midlife makeover, the entire Honda City lineup is now equipped with ADAS functionality, which in 2022 was the preserve of the Honda City Hybrid. The lineup itself has shrunk. The iD-Tech diesel, which was once the magic bullet for Honda India, has now been axed in the wake of the most stringent BS6 Phase 2 norms. Making that engine compliant for these more stringent norms just doesn't make financial sense anymore. Now the hybrid, it does aim to overshadow that diesel or the void left by the diesel in some way. To that effect, they've also introduced the hybrid now in the lower V trim level to make it a lot more accessible than before. Have they done enough though? At least in terms of the design, I think they could have done more. Not everyone wants radical looking cars. There are many who still appreciate an elegant face, many who still appreciate good proportions. And from that point of view, the Honda City continues to be a very good looking car. It's also got excellent proportions. It doesn't look disproportionately tall like some of its European competition. And it's still the longest car in the segment. The new one can be identified with its new front bumper comprising of a sleeker fog lamp housing and a pleat that connects this housing to the lower part of the grille, and there's also a carbon fiber look-alike trimming on the bumper which adds a sporty touch. A closer look reveals a new mesh pattern for the upper grille as well. A bootlit spoiler is now a standard fit on the range topper trims, and the rear bumper gets a garnish that is similar to the front. The alloy wheels also see new designs, both in the 16-inch and the mid-level 15-inch sizes. The tyre sizes, however, remain unchanged, though I think they should have moved to a 195 section at least for the top-end variants. The cabin design is virtually unchanged, meaning you continue to get a cabin or a layout that looks and feels premium than most of its competition. The standard petrol trims use forward inlays, while the hybrid chooses a sportier carbon fiber look. Other enhancements to the cabin include a new frameless rear-view mirror, wireless connectivity for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and a complementing wireless charging pad too, which is fixed in the tunnel console of the hybrid. At the same time, in the petrol variant, it is detachable and powered via the conventional 12-volt socket. Had the cable been longer, it could have been usable in the rear seat as well. The brochure will tell you that the length of this Honda City has increased by 34 millimeters. That's quite a big number. But that increase in length is purely coming from the redesigned bumpers front and rear. There's no change to the cabin space as such. Of course, the cabin space was never a complaint with the current generation Honda City. I think the knee room, the leg space, everything is quite nice. With the seat set to my preference, just look at the kind of room that I have. I like these two reading lamps here. I like the kind of space that I get. I like the kind of visibility that I get outside of the windows. So overall, I'm pretty happy. The front seats are large and supportive as before, but it was high time Honda introduced ventilated seats, especially given the fact that it is such a nice driver's car too. After driving all these turbocharged sedans for the last year, it's good. It's a good feeling to get back into a car that has a naturally aspirated engine. We've always loved that 1.5 litre from Honda, right? It's like that iconic engine. A 1.5 litre petrol with a Honda City just works. There's some charm to it. And that remains unchanged even with the facelift because the powertrains haven't changed at all. rev-happy engine with a slick gearbox and a light clutch will put a smile on the faces of most petrol heads. And the good news is that this engine complies with all the stringent BS6 Phase 2 norms without any drop in power or torque. Even the hybrid system, it remains unchanged, the tuning remains unchanged. On the brochure, you might notice a slightly higher claimed fuel economy figure, but that's purely to do with a slight bit of a change in the testing parameters for the ARAI or for the testing agencies. It's nothing to do with the tuning of the powertrain. It continues to work with an EV only or a series hybrid or a parallel hybrid system. And it is, I think, the more responsible powertrain to go for, or the powertrain to go for if you really need that long distance range. If you purely are looking for driving fun, despite the electrical assistance and everything, I think the 1.5 petrol is still what I would choose. The big news for this update, however, is the inclusion of Honda's sensing ADAS functions in the petrol variants too. So features like lane keep assist, road departure mitigation, and adaptive cruise control, which from 2022 were only available on the hybrid variant, are now available on all but the base SV variant of the 2023 city lineup. The hybrid itself gets a new feature called low speed follow, which is essentially similar to the adaptive cruise control but even works between speeds of 0 to 30 km an hour. So what do you think about the new Honda City and its upgrades and its new pricing? Well, I quite like the fact that Honda has introduced this new S variant so that the pricing remains accessible, the entry point remains accessible for anyone who wants to choose a mid-size sedan over the crossovers. The second thing that I like is the introduction of the V trim with the hybrid. As of last year, the hybrid was still exclusive to the top-end trim, which meant that it was still out of the reach for a lot of people. But the V trim now with that relatively more accessible price point is a very good thing. The Honda City's updates may seem minimal on the face of it, but the inclusion of better safety features like the ADAS tech on most of the trims and also the introduction of the hybrid powertrain on a mid-level trim makes the new City a better deal than before. The new age competition, however, will certainly give the City a tough time, but the fact remains that it is one of the safest, roomiest and most fuel-efficient mid-size sedans that you can buy in the segment right now.
Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Yamaha has recently updated its low-capacity motorcycles, which are on sale in India. We recently got a chance to ride the Yamaha FZ-X in Jaipur in Rajasthan City. The motorcycle now comes with a new paint scheme. It also gets LED indicators and traction control.
I don't know if this is what the Call of the Blue means, where a bunch of Yamaha riders come together and go on a group ride. I don't know if it means that or not. Anyway, we are here to ride the new FZ-X. It's updated for 2023. It hopes to justify its tall asking price. So let me quickly show you what those changes are. Come take a look. Our ride from the heart of Jaipur to the Amer Fort and then onward to the Samod Palace wasn't a very long one, but was enough to talk about the minimal yet meaningful additions made to the new FZ-X. Let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? The FZ-X, not the prettiest of motorcycles. Of course, all these elements, the round headlight, the beefy tank, these radiator shrouds for a radiator that does not exist, the big midship exhaust as they like to call it, that big ribbed seat, all these elements in individual terms would work quite well. But when they come together on this motorcycle, because they are not proportionate, because it's not a balanced design, somehow the design just looks awkward, ungainly. However, the masses seem to love it. They have been literally lapping this motorcycle. They have been showering love on it just the way they did on the first FZ-16. So I think it works for them. And for people who love this design, there is now a new paint scheme to choose from. You get this matte blue with the golden rims. And whether or not I like the design, I certainly like this particular paint combination. I think it looks quite smart. There are many bits that make the FZ-X a likable package though, like the obedient and reliable engine for example, which doesn't pack in class-leading power but has enough torque for power commuting, pulling overtakes at highway speeds without losing breath, and carrying decent speeds around winding roads to keep a newbie rider happy. The chassis complements with a good balance, and while the seat looks disproportionate for the scrambler-inspired styling, it does provide decent comfort for two people. It still has a bit of a wobbly feel at the pillion end, but on the rider side, I had no discomfort of any kind, at least on this 60-odd kilometer ride. When you see a bit of a block pattern like that on the tires and then a scrambler-inspired styling, you expect a nice, supple ride quality, especially on the broken surfaces. However, this motorcycle, it does feel a bit firm, especially here at the Amer Fort. You have a bit of hairpins coming up and it's all cobbled stone kind of a pathway. And there, this motorcycle just jitters so much. There is so much of, these jolts coming to your backside. That clearly shows that the ride quality is not that great. Out on the road, it still is agreeable, but the moment you have roads that are riddled with potholes, the ride quality can leave you wanting for a bit more give, a bit more supple feeling from it. If you want to go scrambling on the FZ-X, you will notice that the bulky tank and the forward set foot pegs make it hard to stand and ride. And this big tank also makes the motorcycle feel top heavy. That said, the low seat and the relatively light nature of the motorcycle make it easy to sit down and ride through dirt and sand though. While this is no dirt bike or scrambler, it will tackle dirt roads and broken pathways with ease. To that effect, there's also a thin but usable bash plate underneath. And when riding off the road, don't forget to turn off the new feature on the bike, traction control, to avoid any abrupt power cuts. The changes aren't purely cosmetic. There are some mechanical changes too, especially in the safety department. You now get TCS or traction control system. Now here in Rajasthan, there's a lot of sand on the roads, through the corners. I even tried riding the motorcycle on surfaces like these, but I never really saw the traction control light flashing, never really felt the power cutting out anywhere. So that only can mean two things. One, that the TCS is working very discreetly. It's not really marring the riding fun anywhere at all. Or it could mean that on a machine like this, which has power figures comparable to a 125, you probably don't need the traction control system at all. You never really find use for it. But like I always say, a safety net is a good feature to have, and this one now has better safety features than some of its competition. So that is good news. I wish they had added a gear position indicator though to the LCD instrumentation, but maybe that would come in the next update. As it stands right now, the 2023 FZ-X, like its predecessor, comes at a premium, but the formula seems to have worked well with the target audience, and the new bike has made that formula a bit more appealing now. So the LED turn blinkers and the traction control system is not exclusive to this motorcycle. They have actually used it on all the 150cc motorcycles, starting from this all the way up to even the R15M. So with that, they are able to sort of distribute the costs, so to say, and which is why the sum of all the additions that you see on this updated motorcycle will only cost you between 2,000 to 4,000 rupees on top of the last year's outgoing model. So I think that's a very small price to pay for the added safety that you get for this new motorcycle. As far as the looks go, like I already said, I'm not a big fan of it, but there seem to be a lot of people who like the motorcycle, and if you're one of those, now this is a more compelling buy than last year's bike.
It's time for us to take our final commercial break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we tell you all about the new Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special. Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. Up next, we have a motorcycle which is big, which is American, which is expensive. It is also not a cruiser for the faint-hearted, but is it a Harley meant for India? Let's find out.
Yes, there are many ways you can spend 35 lakhs of your precious hard-earned money. You could do up your house, make it a lot more fancy. You could invest that money in a luxury SUV or a compact sedan. Or for your motorcycles, you could invest in this Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special. Now this is one of the 2 touring models that the company have on offer in India, and I've spent a good amount of time with this motorcycle. Now without wasting any more time, let's get right to it.
This bike is a proper big American bagger. It's absolutely massive with the attitude to match. Now you have this enormous batwing fairing up front, which covers the entirety of the wide handlebar while protecting your torso from the brunt of the wind as you surge forward. There's even a vent in there that allows some wind to get through to your helmet, so you don't feel like you're being punished for some godforsaken reason. This fairing comprises the Boom GTS infotainment system, which is fantastic, and it comes with speakers and a screen and a very sweet set of analog dials to match. Moving further behind, there's big leather seats that provide you and your pillion with a generous amount of seating room over long distance rides. The good thing with this 2022 Harley model is that it has a good mix of chrome parts, blacked out engine bits, and brightly colored metal parts and panels that really catches your eye for all the right reasons. This isn't one of those overloaded with chrome models, and it looks very classy in comparison. And there's a lot of top quality on show here, from the crisp infotainment system and the paint quality down to the neat and tidy levels of fit and finish.
Yep, now this is one long motorcycle in length. This one measures around 2450 odd millimeters, and as you can see, swinging a leg over, not too much of a hassle, 690 mm of seat height, and you are welcome to a nice broad accommodating seat for the rider. In terms of seating space and riding position, yes, well, true blue cruiser, good to hit the road on a long distance ride. You're seated nicely in the middle of the motorcycle, and not too aggressive, not too laid back, but a very upright riding position. The handlebars are bent back a bit, which is nice and comfortable, and yes, you will really enjoy long rides on this motorcycle. Well, overall, a good motorcycle to really hit the road, you get out on the open highway and enjoy a nice long touring ride.
The Street Glide gets riding aids like cornering ABS, cornering traction control, and hill hold. Hey, there's even a rain traction control setting that you can quickly toggle to on the fly. And that last bit, well, is thrown in there for good reason. You see, because the amount of torque that this bike delivers is crazy. As soon as you release that heavy clutch lever, you unleash this massive wave of torque at the flick of your wrist. And in the wet, this could be really tricky if you're not careful.
Now, the Street Glide Special is powered by Harley-Davidson's Milwaukee 8114. Now, this motor is 1868cc, max power is at around 96 PS, and peak torque is at 158 Nm. I've ridden a motorcycle with this engine before, and yes, it's the same engine as both the touring models. So the Street Glide and the Road Glide get the same motor, and man, this engine is just leaps and bounds ahead of the older twin cam motor from pre-2016. In the city, this engine does tend to heat up a bit like most other V-twins, but out on the highway, no real fuss, and it manages to haul this 375 kg motorcycle with utmost ease. So it's really tuned well for good long distance highway rides.
The way this bike simply glides past traffic feels truly majestic, and you feel that there's justice done to the naming of this one. And as far as the suspension is concerned, well, that holds up really nicely for most part too. Well, out on the highway at least. Because I did try some alternative routes like state highways and such on the way back home from Delhi, and the suspension, well, it took out the sharpness of bumps and small ruts very well. But obviously I had to slow down to almost a halt to take on big ditches and oddly shaped speed breakers just so that the belly wouldn't scrape. Because this thing is low. Yup, it will take a bit of time to get used to riding this motorcycle, well, on account of its massive overall dimensions, and that includes the wide handlebar up front and those big panniers at the back. But once you get used to the weight of this motorcycle, you'll find that it doesn't take a lot of effort to get on with things down the open road. Well, and that's on account of its brilliant balance. You see, Harley-Davidson have done an excellent job on this front. Because with the Street Glide, you're seated low and in the center of the bike, keeping center of gravity low. And this gives you a good feel and command of things, allowing you to relax and move about and make minor adjustments as you feel fit. So you'll be blasting down the highway very comfortably as time this bike.
Now, to sum up this Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special, Well, to be honest, given city conditions in a place like Bombay, riding this bike on a daily basis, man, is going to be super cumbersome because hauling all that weight around the city in tight spaces and finding your way through traffic and such, man, it is going to be a bit tiring overall. But out on the highway, this machine just comes into its own. It just feels so special. Not only does it look fantastic, but you will have a lot of fun riding this motorcycle at higher speeds out on the open highway. It's just so comfortable, so easy once you actually get the hang of the weight and everything about it. But riding this motorcycle long distance, you really feel like you've transcended just going beyond simply being a biker. You feel like a vibe because that's what this motorcycle makes you feel, and that's what's so special about it. And 35 lakh rupees, yes, it is on the higher side of things, but if you have that kind of money to shell out on a bike of this sort, well, just get out there and be the rock star that you can be, because this motorcycle is definitely going to make you look the part.
With that, it's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And you can follow our latest updates on Instagram. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.